Welcome. You're watching New Attitude, and I'm your host, Anastasia Rivers. This is our third forum for the senatorial race, and this is a part of our civics class for New Attitude Parent and Teen Workshop. But before we go any further, I would like to have a moment of silence for my friend Audrey Brown, who recently passed away and was laid to rest this week. Thank you. Just want to say may Audrey rest in peace, and her daughter Des and her son have fond memories of her and the rest of us in the community that shared this special person. And we were friends from childhood, and she was special to me. I couldn't make it to the funeral because I myself took ill, and to go to the funeral would have made it worse for me, so I didn't attend, but I was there in spirit. And I thank God to be here to present the senatorial forum that'll be up in a bit. But let me tell you a little bit about No Attitude Parent and Teen Workshop. This was like a dream of mine, and I started in my mind from 5 years before I retired. And then now I'm 13 years after retiring and trying to get it going. And what I'm doing is I get into the mission of No Attitude Parent and Teen Workshop is to build a stronger bond with parents and child. I know how it was, and I could relate to being a single parent with 3 children. And I use my experience as a police officer and a business owner and compile them together to form a workshop where we could help the parents and the child to bond and do activities together. And the program is free, providing the parents participate. We modernize it, we curtail it a little bit because I know parents are working. So the parents would participate one Friday of every month and all the fundraising activities. But if they don't participate, they will have to pay. So you have a choice to either pay or just come and participate with your children and see what's going on. And if you don't have a high school diploma, we could help you get it. If you want to go to college, we could help you. But we can't give you the scholarship. The scholarship goes to the best student. So without that, without any further ado, we'll be coming back in a few minutes with our candidates. And this will be non-party candidates and Republican candidate, hopefully. Welcome, and this is not anything political on our part as No Attitude. It's to share and get the kids involved in politics and know, like for instance, look this young man, Javon James, 31 years old. If we get the kids more involved in the civics, they will be able to participate more and be a part of this political system, and not just go because the parents said this is who you're going to vote for, and some don't register. So we want them to learn the importance of being aware along with other subjects in the program. So they'll be seeing this and they're going to have a mock election. So we'll be right back with the candidates. Your host Anastasia Rivers, and you're watching New Attitude. We're here with our third forum. As I promised, we have some candidates here. The 1 Republican and 2 non-party candidates. One is a senator at large, one is and 2 from St. Croix, of course. And I want to first thank you all for accepting my invitation, because this is not all about politics, but as I mentioned to you all, my appreciation for you all participating is to show the interview on Facebook, because you being here is supporting the Parent and Teen Workshop, the civics class. So I want to thank you all for coming out, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to share with the community. We're going to first start with Genevieve. Genevieve, you have 2 minutes to share your platform or what you want to say to the public, what you want them to know about yourself.
Well, a pleasant good evening, observers. It's a pleasure to be here, and I also really want to commend you for this effort. Civics being one of the key items I think is really important. My name is Genevieve Whitaker. I was born and raised here on the island of St. Croix. My grandparents, grandmother, are from the island of Antigua, so I consider myself to be an Afro-Caribbean woman. I would say that I grew up raised by a grandmother who really instilled in me the importance of giving back to the community. From a very early age, I was involved in community service. By way of background, if I look back to my journey in terms of my educational background, I have a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Government and World Affairs, a focus on political science. I also have a law degree. In addition to that, a master's degree in political management, and I also went back a couple years ago to and graduated recently with a degree in strategic criminal justice management. My journey here in terms of my professional experience really started from an early age. I began working in the legal field at the age of 15, actually, right here in St. Croix, and I continued on throughout law school and in undergrad and law school to work in the legal field in the arena. I'm also a human rights activist. I co-founded and I'm the president of the VI Youth Advocacy Coalition, an organization dedicated to civics. In fact, 2 years ago, I was invited by the legislature to testify in support of the civics legislation, which now requires that in high school a civics course be offered. 2 years ago, my youth organization was recognized by the United Nations. I am a 2016 fellow for the International Decade of People of African Descent, where I represented the Virgin Islands. What I want to highlight in closing is that I am committed to serve, and if elected by you, I know that I will continue my commitment to service. Thank you.
Mr. Bolques.
Good afternoon. My name is Angel Luis Bolques Jr. I was born on St. Croix, raised on St. John, and worked most of my career on St. Thomas. My father, who is Angel Luis Bolques Sr., lives here on St. Croix, and my mother, Patricia Powell, is from St. John, 7 generations in her family on St. John. I've worked in many different capacities, most recently as the administrative assistant to the Board of Elections in the St. Thomas and St. John district. I've also been a computer technology teacher. I also dealt with Title V at that school. Title V is a program that deals with federal funding for technology, which is also, there's a component for auditing and inventory management. I was specifically in charge of that. I've also been a revenue manager, a reservations manager, and a front desk manager, to name a few. I've also studied business administration and graphic arts. I happen to also have a business called Angel Arts Consulting, which is a graphic arts company as well here in the Virgin Islands. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is education. I do believe that education reform is one of my most important reforms that I have on my platform currently, along with economic development and also capitalizing on our natural resources to form new streams of revenue for our territory. The fact is that we cannot do anything unless our economic development starts to flourish, because that's the way that we're going to receive the funding that we need to put into all the programs that are needed here for our youth especially, and also our seniors, because I currently feel that the government as it stands is only focusing on the workforce and not the youth and the elderly. So you're telling me that you're not willing to invest in your future and take care of your culture, which is your heritage, your veterans as well. Thank you.
Ms. Belardo.
Hi.
O'Neal.
My name is Liliana Belardo deO'Neal. I'm not a new face and I'm not a young face, but I'm glad and very honored to be here this evening among these two young people. And from us, we are going to learn from each other. I believe that you all know me for a very long time. I served in the legislature for 16 years. I was the vice president of the legislature for 4 terms. I had a chairmanship of the Rules Committee, which is one of the most powerful committee in the legislature. I was vice chairman of the Finance Committee, which had me working very long hours and away from my home in St. Thomas. I am graduate from the Central High School. I have a BA from the Inter-American University. I have a master's degree from the University of Michigan, and I did all my doctoral courses from the University of Miami, and my last accomplishment was getting my SARA certification, Certified Register Election Officer, working 6 years for the Board of Election. As you can see, I have not been home, staying home. I've been involved with the community, with many activities, with the young people, with a lot of clubs, and I am willing to serve the people. And believe me, many people ask, why at my age do I want to go back to have that headache? Serving in the legislature was never a headache. And serving in the legislature was my passion. And I have a passion to continue serving this community until my mind is no longer working. But Social Security says that you can work as long as you want and as long as you decide. And I'm coming out of retirement to work and to serve the people, to continue working. I'm not going in there for a salary, because I can stay home right now and receive a salary. I need your vote on November 6th. Remember, Liliana, Belardo, deO'Neal.
Thank you, Liliana. And I must say that I need to introduce my cousin here, Ron Romney. He is my timekeeper, my left hand and my right hand. And he's always there for me, and I'm so happy that he's here again. He's also one of the instructors for the Parent and Teen Workshop. He has his own business. The name of the business is Crujan Gamers. And he called it Crujan Gamers because it also have a group where he brings people from the different islands to play video games, and that's a big thing in the States. That could be a tourism thing. He also going to teach the children how to repair computer and build it from scratch. So I'm proud and honored to have him here. And he's also do a lot of other stuff, but that's the main thing that we're doing. So I'm tapping into people in the community that have skills that want to share with the Parent and Teen Workshop. So now, let's go starting with Ms. Belardo. First thing I want to ask, I noticed that accountability is one of the focus. Every time I look at a forum, or they're bringing up accountability. So, with that in mind, what areas would you look into to enforce it? Because the fact that a lot of department heads are not complying and not spending the money, money is going back. So, what area would you consider to enforce it, or what measures would you take to implement some kind of penalty?
That's a very good question, and my record in the legislature will show, or has shown, that I was always very accountable and transparent in everything I did, and I demanded that from the rest of the body of the legislature. There are three main areas that I would like to see accountability, but the most important one is the GERS. The GERS board needs to be revamped. We need to get the audit that was done a couple months ago and look at what their suggestion is and take care of that. No employee who has worked for 30, 35, 40 years should wait no more than 90 days to get a check. And that's one of my first proposal that I'm going to make, because any employees that work this long should get their first paycheck before 90 days. The next area is education, as Mr. Bolques said here. Education is very top-heavy, and we as senators have the power to cut off some of those positions on the higher level and bring that money down to circulate among the students, to give them better books, to get them bigger equipment, and to make sure that our teachers are better paid, and that they get all the tools to work with our students. And the next one is labor. Labor Department has been my passion, and as the chairman of labor, I always demanded that if no one from the island works, nobody else should come here and work. We should protect our local workers, we should protect our local contractors, and then bring anybody else. And we should train our young people to take all these jobs that are right here now and are being taken over because they don't have the proper training. Thank you.
Mr. Bolques?
Excellent question. Well, the Inspector General has made many different audits throughout the government, and accountability has been a very big issue here in the Virgin Islands for quite some time now. I would be in support of more audits of different agencies, especially the ones that have shown discrepancies throughout the years. I would definitely start with those first. As a senator and understanding the role of a senator, you can't quite push for an audit unless your constituents are all involved. But top to bottom government audits of different agencies is definitely in my platform as well. I believe that it's very important that we also, like Ms. Belardo also said, like education, I do agree with her, is top heavy. We do need to cut back on different boards, different positions that are not quite suiting us well here in the territory. We can also start with pushing for e-government as well to create more transparency throughout the government as well. And that is my answer.
Whitaker?
Thank you, and I agree it's an excellent question. Accountability, how do we examine that? I do agree with the concept of auditing, but I will highlight that the legislature has consistently received those Inspector General audits, and honestly, they don't take that into consideration as they look at the different boards. I have attended numerous meetings of various boards. Most recently, I attended the Casino Control Commission meeting, and for several years, I've definitely attended Board of Education meetings for my concern over the curriculum. One of the things I'm advocating for is for structural reform. We talk about the Office of Management and Budget, the Department of Finance, and the Department of Property and Procurement. In my role, as I didn't highlight in the beginning, my current capacity is serving as the Deputy Supervisor for the election system, largely responsible for our federal grants. And at the national level, I was also elected 2 years ago to the United States Election Assistance Commission, and one of the responsibilities was holding states accountable to the funds that we issued them. So I know what it means to have accountability. I will highlight that in even talking about accountability in terms of the workforce, holding everyone accountable to include the managers. Many times it's felt that the managers are not being held accountable to their jobs, and even, of course, employees directly as well. I'll go to my experience. One of my jobs was serving as the Associate State Director of Communication for AARP, and what I witnessed within AARP was the importance of professional development and how that can affect your accountability to the organization. So accountability across the board, structural reform is really going to be key. I look at the Public Finance Authority. At one point, the legislature had oversight over the Public Finance Authority, and now it's, this concern about its use and how it's being managed. So again, accountability across the board within our workforce, accountability of our board members and agencies that have mandates, and thank you so much, and that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay. We make mention about the accountability, yes, but I figured that maybe once you all get in, whoever get in could start to, just my suggestion, to start to discuss ways of putting their hand to the fire, in a nutshell, and make sure that they do what they have to do. You get this position, commissioner for here, or whatever for this whatever place, and your money is going back. So I want for them to be penalized some kind of how to make sure that they keep up to par and not make us lose money and going back, because they're not spending. When you hear, one of the forums, one senator mentioned that, one candidate mentioned that it had 5 years, the money they had 5 years to spend, and they didn't even spend 1 cent. So what that says, that somebody won't doing the job and they're getting paid every payday. So So anyway, my next question is about veterans. affair. I know they had we're gonna start with you, Genevieve. They started in the beginning. I heard that Howell was talking about the Auditor General when she first came in, talking about getting the veterans to get health care at Wang Louis. I haven't heard anything yet, so I'm asking you all what measures if you come into the Senate, what measures you would implement to speed up the process so our Virgin Island veterans could get better health care here instead of going to Puerto Rico.
Excellent question, and actually recently I interacted with it was an informal conversation with the Veteran Affairs Director, but I would highlight that it's one of the lowest funded entities. I would want to beef up the funding for the veterans. They served our country, and in respect to our veterans. I'm also the daughter of veterans, and so this hits home for me as well. I think of my mom and my dad who's passed, but I would say that ultimately, when it comes to healthcare, and I look at it from both our lack of overall healthcare for those who are not non-veterans, but I even look to the fact that you go to Puerto Rico, you hear the stories. I've heard many stories. You go there and even have trouble there in Puerto Rico. I would like to establish a veterans hospital right here. We could actually have it as we look to rebuild our hospital and have a veterans wing dedicated to our veterans. They've served us well, and we have to do much better. And then I will also highlight with that, it's going to require us to be ambassadors for our veterans. I would like to see the senators actually going and working with the delegates to Congress, go into Congress, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and really doing that lobby effort to get the federal funds here to establish that. And working with Puerto Rico as well. Could there be times when maybe special services will have to be offered in Puerto Rico? But ultimately, I can see a hospital being established here and essentially beefing up the funding for the Veterans Office.
Thank you. Mr. Bolques?
And my colleague actually said it also, there are federal programs that the Veteran Affairs could actually tap into, such as No Soldier Left Behind. There are different programs that are offered to the military for veterans to facilitate their needs during this time. I do not believe that our Veteran Affairs here on island are actually taking advantage of those different programs that are available or are in place for our veterans. So I'm not sure how the dynamics of the office is. Maybe they're understaffed. Maybe they don't have a grant writer on board. We don't know. But it is something that I'm going to look into as well. I think it's very important that we do, not only just in Veteran Affairs, but in any agency, take advantage of the grant programs. It's very important for us to get those federal monies and to also be accountable for them so that we can keep receiving those monies to facilitate our needs. So one of the main things that I would be pushing for is to making sure that there's someone on board or someone who is trained to get these grants that are available through the Veteran Affairs programs so that they're able to facilitate the needs of current veterans and also to make sure that there's adequate, because some veterans, including my uncle, he was injured by a grenade and he's also receiving funding, but he's in Puerto Rico. He was not receiving funding here, so he moved back to Puerto Rico to be able to get the funding that he needed. So we're not, unfortunately, without pointing a finger, we're not doing as much as we could be doing here, and I would like to see the Veteran Affairs Committee do more.
Thank you. Ms. Belardo?
Let me say that I am a veteran. I served 16 years as a veteran. I serve in the National Guard. And as a veteran, I understand your question, and I'm glad that you asked. What Ms. Whitaker said about having a wing in the hospital designated for veterans has been proposed already with this last hospital that we had. And instead of the governor, that time, the last governor doing that, he put all of those rooms into offices for the administration of the hospital when those rooms should have been gone to veterans so that we could have a veterans wing. I am happy to let you know that because of my legislation, we were able to bring the Office of the Veterans Affairs here that's now in Strawberry. And that was under Randelugo and, of course, Mr. Venezuela from Puerto Rico. I also was able, most of my legislation in the legislature was for veterans. We were able to raise the housing prices and loans for buying houses. We were able to raise the loans for buying lands, and we were able to get land secure. We have a lot of land here secure for our veterans through my efforts. And I am saying, and I did question what is our delegate to Congress is doing, because this is where she comes in on the federal level to help our veterans. And I question, why is it that we as veterans under the USAA can get $30,000, $40,000 to buy a car, but we cannot get insurance for our homes? You know, and this is something that when I get there, I am going to pursue, because the same way I can get $40,000 to buy a car under the Veterans USAA, I should be able to get insurance for our house, and the federal government will have to deal with that, and our representative to Congress should do more for our veterans.
Thank you. Okay. My next question is, what would you do to bring change to the 33rd legislature? What would you, starting with you, Mr. Bolques, what would you offer, or what would you try to implement to make it better? I mean, we shouldn't wait till it break, but it crack right now.
Yeah.
You know, so what would you do to make it better?
I believe that that I'm a new perspective. I'm pretty much different from my colleagues, and I feel like I'm going to bring a fresh look, in a sense. But specifically, I believe that one of the most major and important things that I would like to focus on is to poll the community. I want to give the community an opportunity to have their voices heard on specific issues. It might not be the smaller issues on the table, but when big issues come up, major issues that are going to change our lives, I would love and will support community involvement. I think it's a very important factor. I think that's what we're actually missing right now, because people feel left out of the equation. They feel that the senators are making their own decisions on their own accord. Self-interest is in play. These are some of the things that they're feeling out there, okay? I would do so by doing e-polls online. I would leave suggestion boxes at libraries. Whatever the bill is in place, whatever initiative we might want to put forward or something, maybe just to poll the general public to understand what would you like for us to try to accomplish or to change so that life is easier for you, because this government is for the people. It's not just for a selected few, it's for everyone. So we need to make sure that the quality of life is in a certain aspect. So polling the community on issues, on initiatives, on programs, whatever it may be, I think that that's something that I'm very seriously going to do. It's not something I'm going to say now, and then when I get in there, change my mind. It's something that I truly believe in. I want to give the people an opportunity to let their voices be heard, and your voice is very important to me and my colleagues as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when I analyze this question, what change I can bring. When I first job home, actually, I'm the former legal counsel in the 27th legislature, so I already have some insight into the legislature, and it was a real eye opener for me. Many changes, structurally, but I would say most importantly, I would say my role as a senator. I've already begun the process of community engagement, even putting on my community development and my community hat. My campaign has asked for questions and surveys and surveying the community. So I do agree with my colleague, Mr. Bolques, in terms of talking about polling the community, reaching out to the community. And as we run our campaigns and go out to ask for your vote, I want to in turn say that also, if elected by you, and if you vote for me, I want to come back to you to ask you some of those same questions, to survey you. I want to form focus groups where we will come together on key issues, people in the community, get the feedback we need. I too tire of decisions being made in what I call a silo, in the dark at times, because I argue that many of our boards are in darkness, because I go to meetings and ask, I have to work so hard to find out the meetings are happening, but that, again, decisions everyone should be at the table when decisions are being made. And that's a key thing, and we need to make sure that we include everybody in the decisions that we do make. I would like to see also, when I think about the 33rd legislature, they're doing a good job in terms of getting out, in terms of the meeting being online, but let's go a lot further than that. I want to have better tracking of the bills. The bill search, I am a researcher, I'm a lawyer, I know how to use it, but it's not really user-friendly. Also, the Public Affairs Office. The legislature needs a public information officer, and I've vocally said that to senators, especially after the storm. So let us all be on the table, and let us do right by the people. Thank you so much.
Ms. Belardo?
You know, as I listened to your question, I said, this is a very difficult question because you are asking me what I can do to make the legislature better. And when I look at 15 individual, strong-minded people, all elected by the community, how can you do that? But being there and analyzing what happened before when I served and what's happening now, I can see that we have lost a lot of respect for the community. Our legislature sometimes don't have the quorum. What I would like to do is have a teamwork and use my experience to help the younger senators, because we're going to have a lot of younger persons elected, okay? And everybody says, I want to be a senator, I can do the job. When you get there, you know that you have to learn the role of a senator. And I am going to use my experience to be able to reach out to them and help them along so that they can get going as soon as possible. One of the things that I would like to do is to make sure that we provide the proper training for the legislative staff. We have some legislative staff that do not respect the community. We are the first branch of government, and as such, not only the senators, but everyone, including the staff, staff, should respect the community. So I will make sure that the staff get the proper training to provide the community with the services from the first branch of government, and I will also ask, please, to the senators elected that they provide that same training for their staff, because anybody that comes to that legislature should come in angry but should leave with a smile, because we are service-oriented legislature and the first branch of government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I had said earlier that I will only ask questions to everybody, but I have to ask that large senator a question. Okay, I want you to name 3 different qualities of each island, because you got to represent all 3. So what qualities of each island that stands out in your mind more, and what would you do in your area to enhance each one?
Excellent question. And as I traverse through the Virgin Islands and trying to run for senator at large, one of the most important things to me personally is learning from the people that I speak to. And there are so many issues and so many things that need attention. But if I were to answer your question as specifically as possible, St. John currently pays the most per capita in taxes than any other island, and that's more in the land tax area. So for St. John specifically, and they don't get the government services that they actually need, okay? They're paying the most taxes, they're not getting the government services that they need. So for St. John, one of the most important factors is that they need more government agency support on island. They don't want to go run over to St. Thomas every single day to go get a government service, okay? So that's the cry of St. John, and that's what I would want to focus on. There are other issues, but that's the one thing for that specific island. St. Thomas now is the capital of the Virgin Islands, and St. Thomas's issue currently, from what I understand, and which is an issue that reflects on all 3 islands, is mostly economic development. Although St. Thomas has most of the economic development that any island has right now, because they're the ones who have all the hotels and they have all the stores and duty-free shopping and so forth and so on. But below that would be healthcare, okay? St. Croix, which is the largest of the three islands, which has the capacity to be developed a lot more than it actually is crying out for more economic development. So it seems like we're focusing on one island more than the other, and I would want to switch that around and change that. I think St. Thomas has enough economic development. St. Croix, it's your turn now. Let's get it done. St. Thomas, we're going to look at other things, okay? We need to develop our healthcare and different education and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Genevieve, what, well, I ain't going to ask you, Liliana, because you already answered the question. I was going to ask you why you decided to run again, but you already put it out there. You must have was reading my mind. Okay? So now, Genevieve, I want you to tell me what area you would market St. Croix for other than tourism and agriculture.
Excellent question. One of the biggest areas that I'm very interested in is in historic tourism. I've traveled the world in many places and see where they've capitalized on their history. I'm also a member of Succeed, an organization that's been dedicated to this concept of developing national historic heritage areas, where we would basically map out our island, and essentially visitors would come and we'd be working with the tourism department. Also the other item in terms of marketing St. Croix, we talk a lot about agriculture, so it would be a tie-in to that, but looking at it from the perspective of using our history to develop these historic areas, but also when we think about agriculture in terms of agritourism. I also think about excursions. I've gone to different islands and other places where people come for exciting things, and using water sports and things like that. I'm also a proponent of looking into possibilities of for even a water park, which has been proposed a number of times, and ways in which we can actually both look at not only just for those on the outside, but also for the inside. I look to even our children, and sometimes I feel that there's not enough parks for them and things like that. So for me, it would be a focus on the historical value of the Virgin Islands. I'm also a big fan of the movie industry. We see a lot of movies being made about actual stories of great people. Earlier this year, I was one of the 3 speakers for the unveiling of the I Am Queen Mary statue in Denmark. And with that, you see now that's a historic place and people are going to come and see that. I envision us, building our own statues here and also using that as part about the tour in terms of developing our history. Stories are being written about our great historians, essentially. And so I could see a push for that within the movie industry, also in those different areas. So thank you for your question.
Okay. I'll give you all the opportunity to answer that, because I mainly wanted to get yours, as, to see the meat of you because of at large, So, Liliana?
Let me say that St. Croix, as Mr. Bolques said, have been really neglected. I think that we have so much to offer in tourism. For example, we have our sea, our ocean. We can have fishing tournament, and bring these yachts, these boats, like in St. Thomas, or better than St. Thomas, because I don't like to compare St. Croix and St. Thomas. I think we can do much better if we insist on having these things. I also feel, and Ms. Whitaker did mention the water park. That was one of my initiatives in the legislature. And we have to understand that if we don't get the support of the majority in the committee, we're not going to go anyplace. And that proposal was, I had all the islands that represented the Virgin Islands, and I designed a whole program, but I was never able to get it through. But that's something that if I can get Ms. Whitaker when she wins to give me the support, we can work together, because that's where my experience will come to develop legislation like that. I think we can do so much with sport interchanges. We used to bring people from Puerto Rico, we used to bring people from New Jersey, from the Dominican Republic to play sport. We can make this a sport area, community. We can also develop our history. We have so much history here in St. Croix, like our sugar mills. I mean, I go around and see these sugar mills, and my husband and I can always say, why can we develop those sugar mills into museum and have our tourists come here and look at our sugar mills and look at our museum and look at the history that we have here in St. Croix. And those are the things that I will promote St. Croix for tourism.
Thank you. Okay, now, each one of you, tell me, if you become senator, which area, I know you chair many, but you said all of that, but which area would you want to chair and why? Yes.
For me, definitely it's going to be the education committee. And when we talked about the question of accountability, it brought me back to the fact that I am one of the litigants that's suing the government for the failure to teach Virgin Islands Caribbean history and culture. So that's another way to hold people accountable, forcing upon the executive branch to implement laws that we've passed. So for when I look at the education committee, my biggest thing is the fact that we have a federal law that's been passed as of 3 years under President Obama, which really revamped the entire education system. And I do not feel that neither the board nor the Department of Education is doing what they have to do. I will also make mention of the fact that I participated in the career and technical board meetings. Those board members are appointed by the governor. I remain very concerned about their funding level, very concerned about their inability to really move vocational school where it's supposed to be. I'm a graduate of the St. Croix Educational Complex, and I've seen the decline of the vocational school. It's very sad, and we witness today the impact of the lack of curriculum. We see the impact, to me, of not holding these boards accountable. Boards, again, as I say, meeting in the dark, and we have a sunshine law. So for me, the education committee would really get involved with, first of all, assessing the situation, looking at our structure. We also know, of course, many of our schools are condemned. Getting the federal government to help us rebuild all of our schools. I will want to hold the board responsible and establish a curriculum committee so they can stop going back and forth between the board of education and the department, and we can stop having to go to the grandparents and parents who stop being frustrated and having to go to the court to resolve our issues. So again, for me, and I will also add, it also involves culture. I recognize the importance of our parades and things like that, but when I talk about culture, it's about literacy. A number of our children, even adults, do not know about our historic figures. And also, I'll finally add, in closing, the importance of human rights as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Angel Bolques. I would prefer to, if I had the opportunity, I would prefer to chair the Economic Development and Agriculture Committee, I'm sorry. Because just so everyone knows, one of the things that I've done before actually running for office and during is I met with GERS, Austin Nibs. I met with the compliance division at the EDA to better understand the issues and to better understand what's on the table, what's affecting us. Because you can't pretend that you know everything. You have to go to the source. You have to go to people who deal with this on an everyday basis to actually get the information that you need to ascertain some sort of solution. Okay, economic development, point blank, if we don't have a flourishing economy, we're not going to be able to do anything at all, point blank. Okay, let's just get it right out in the open. So we need to focus on economic development. We need to find new streams of revenue for our Virgin Islands. I understand tourism is our number one, but tourism needs to be marketed differently. It's been marketed the same exact way for eons. We need to go back to the drawing board. We need to market our territory differently, especially St. Croix. St. Croix could be an excursion island. It could be a historical standpoint island. It could be a number of things on a tourism scale, okay? That's all under economic development. So we need to market St. Croix differently so that people will want to come to St. Croix. We can't depend on the cruise ships to come here because they're not coming here. All of them are going to St. Thomas because St. Thomas is offering something that they want. Okay, so we need to focus on marketing our territory differently. We need to tap into different forms of, different new forms of revenue for our territory. We need to tap into our natural resources on many levels. It could be energy with hydro, solar, wind power. Also tap in for exporting natural goods like teas and juices and so forth. My time is done. Thank you very much.
Short time, huh? Let me again say realistically, that's a very difficult question because as the only individual that may not be a Democrat, I may not get a committee assignment because the majority in the Senate is the one that gives out those chairmanship of the legislature. My vision and my passion and my dream is that one day we can forget about party politics and work for the people of the Virgin Islands and give every senator the opportunity to run a committee, to do whatever they have to do for the people of St. Croix, not for the party. But going back to your question, and being there, done that, I would love to be the chairman of the Veterans and Labor, because I just said my passion as a veteran and my passion to protect our local people, to train our youth so that they can get these jobs, because everybody is not a college material. We have to start focusing on those young people that cannot get to college, but they can do something with their hands, with the minds, they can be creative. And that is where I would come in with Labor and Veterans Committee. But of course, I love my Rules Committee, because in the Rules Committee, I can scrutinize anyone that the governor sends, and I will give the right information to the senators so that they can make the informed decision of whether this commissioner is the right one to serve in that department or is the wrong commissioner, and see which one of the senators will have the guts to tell the governor, this one does not qualify to be a commissioner of any department, and send that appointee back to the governor so he can send someone else. That's my passion. Thank you.
I think you're bugging my computer, you know, because that's what's going to be my next comment because my question was going to be about party and majority, because some people, from what I see, sometimes the vote based on the majority, and instead of, they forget about the people.
Exactly.
And that way I was getting, I'd be so frustrated when I watch it. And I be watching, I don't miss it, I don't watch it. And I see how people are sticking with the party and afraid to come out of the party and represent the people that vote for you. Because the party ain't vote you in, it's the people. Because I don't vote party. I tell you straight up, I vote individual that are gonna work for us. So don't care what party you're for. If you ain't doing for the people, you ain't getting my vote, because you want to work for me. So you ain't working for Democrat, or you ain't working for Republican or Independent. You're working for me and the rest of us. So again, a little passionate there. Sorry. but you're really you hit it. That I just hope that it gets shake up. That is the problem that is broken inside there. It's too much. And I have one senator that was very frustrated because they said they have good things that they want to bring forward, but this one want you, only how I gonna vote for you if you support this, and they find that it wasn't what they think was right, so they didn't get the support. So this person was strong enough not to do it, but then it looks like they weren't doing nothing because they ain't getting the support. So I appreciate that very much. Now, I had a few little young people had some concern. One told me, and this is just what the child said, one told me, I hear that they're going to sell Lagoon. And I said, well, I don't know if that's true. But my question to you is, if that was supposed to come up and you as a senator, would you approve that? And yes or no, and why? Because this is a child telling me this. Because I was going around and I said, you know, I'm going to have this forum, and if you want to ask a question, tell me. And they said they hear that.
I will say definitely not. And I say that because in my book, the government should retain as much property as we have right now and should purchase additional property so that our people can get land. For example, I was able to acquire 2,000 acres of land with $6 million under the Luis administration. And this is why we have all of that land in Haviland property, that a lot of people do not realize that that was one of my major legislation. And now we have people owning a little plot of land, owning the homes right there. And I had to fight 2 real estate senators that fought me to the end because they said the government should not be in real estate. I will never allow myself to be part of selling Altona Lagoon. I will not be a part of selling any of government property unless those property are going to our people so that they can build the little homes, so that they can have the little garden and be sustainable, self-sufficient. And my answer is no, never.
Thank you.
As a boy, I actually left St. Croix when I was about 7 years old. When I was a boy, I actually used to go down to the lagoon with my father, and he used to go down there to catch sprat. Yeah, he's also a fisherman too, part-time. He's not going out as much now, but we used to go down there, camp out. We used to go fishing down there. So for me, it has a lot of childhood memories. And I'm not just saying that because I have memories, it's going to spark me to make my decision. I believe that memories were made down there by many, many Crucians here in the Virgin Islands. I think that it's a place where children go with their parents and they go down there to camp out. They go there to have little beach parties. It has a very traditional feel down there at the lagoon, and I would never want to take something like that away from the people of the Virgin Islands. And more specifically, to be honest, why are we selling? Why can't we lease? Why you don't get rid of your revenue makers, you know? You don't get rid of potential revenue makers. You know, it could turn into something else down the line. It may not be generating the type of money that you may want it to generate now, but the aspect that it contains traditional and cultural and heritage or a feeling of importance to the people should not prompt you to want to sell something like that or to get rid of it. You know, so it might hurt a lot of people's spirit if you do something like that. You know, and then, you know, we got to also empower our people. That's our slogan. My campaign committee is power to the people, and our slogan is empowering the people. That's what I want to do for you. I want to be able to empower you and give you a voice in the legislature through me as your speaker. So I would vote definitely no on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I also agree with everything that's been said by my fellow panelists in the concept of it, you know, it can't be sold. But it gets into a larger issue, again, about our children and the need for recreation. So under the Department of Housing, Sports and Recreation, again, another department that's poorly funded, is that we need to revamp and even work on actually, and interesting with Lagoon, you had a private person who went out there and she planted number of trees and made the place absolutely beautiful, and imagine a person did that on their own. The government, in really looking at re-examining how we really care for our children, and the parents also and the community coming together to say we want to improve our spaces for our children. We need a lot more parks. We need community centers. That goes into the issue of community centers. I do commend we have Mumbiju Community Center and some others that we have as models for where people can congregate and children can have a good time. When you look out this whole issue of the hurricane and all these, the students having to have these schedules, half-day schedule, things like that, there's no place for recreation. Living in the States, having lived in the States and worked on things like that, I know, the YMCAs and all these different community centers where children had things to do. I will also add to the fact, correct about the importance of not selling off our land. In fact, the government needs to invest in more land, and as I agree with that, in really, of course, developing even, in fact, an actual complex where things can happen in the same place. But again, I highlight the importance of recreation. I think of myself also, going to the nearby beach. I also, frequented Lagoon, took my son there to the park, and even he having also taken, it could be better developed. And essentially, the last point I will make in closing is that the important part is that our community needs to rise up and push back when these things happen, and I will help them in that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And, and I'm going to piggyback on what you just said, because I was going to bring that up. Canigata, it's a good recreation. We have places for the children to have the little ride and the basketball court and what have you. But Wim has nothing really right now, and I don't know. I haven't been there to see if there's someone working there, but a certain time of the day, by the time school closes, is nobody there to walk with the kids or show them how to play a game or anything. So people in the Wim area that live in that area don't have that recreation. So I'm hoping and I'm bidding to you all to look into that when you get in. Because my focus is mostly for youths, and they don't have much place for them, much things for them to do. And again, we'll be saying the children is our future. Well, nourish our future, And and to close in, I will give each of you 2 minutes to close up. And if sometimes we say something and then I should have said this or whatever you feel you didn't say, you have 2 more minutes to share with the public. And again, thank you for coming.
Well, once again, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Stacy and Ms. Rivers, for this opportunity. So in closing, I will express that one thing I didn't get too deeply into is when I came back home in 2007, I knew I was committed to service. I'm an activist. I've represented you as Virgin Islanders and as people at the United Nations calling for the reform political, economic, social, and cultural rights, even at the United Nations level. I am an internationally recognized speaker called upon for my activism. But I will say here on the local level, I know, in fact, of many issues. My commitment to the community really stems from my belief in, and even in running as an independent, no-party candidate, not that I'm trying to challenge any particular agenda, but I will also highlight that last year, I was selected by the former president, President Barack Obama, who I got to meet at the 2017 summit. I was selected out of 15,000 people because the president and his team recognized my commitment to the community in believing. And I will highlight President Obama's mission as well if I look at it in his own services office, in which he said he's going to reach across the party lines in order to push for government. I'm asking for you to support me along this journey. I, too, running for office, have established a progressive movement organization in which I believe that our people have to be more engaged in the political rights. I hear the cries, even most recently, of a local contractor who said he had all the credentials he needed, but of course he was put out of the process to even get the bids at the local level, people coming in and essentially. And as we go through this process of rebuilding from 2 horrific hurricanes, I will also add the importance of being prepared. I would argue that I am a person who's prepared to serve. And I will also add the importance of training. The last few years of my life have been dedicated to training myself to be in this role. That includes understanding executive leadership. That includes community service and how to engage the community. So again, on November 6th, I'm asking for your vote and your support, Genevieve Whitaker. Thank you.
Thank you. And good afternoon, and first and foremost, thank you, Ms. Rivers, and I would like to say that I do respect everything that you all have been doing for the youth, and New Attitude is definitely on my plate now as one of the programs that I would love to support. I'm sorry that I didn't know about it sooner, but now I know, and I can move on with that now. Thank you. Angel Bolques, I don't have a number yet, but I'll be running in the November 6, 2018 general election. I am born on St. Croix, raised on St. John, and worked most of my career on St. Thomas. First and foremost, I want to tell the people that are listening right now that we need leaders that are going to put words into action. People who are going to take local needs, more importantly, over politics. Okay, we need people that are going to look out for what we need, not their own self-interest. I am not a politician. I want to be a representative of the people. I want to support you and represent you in the most difficult of times. We are on a crash course, from what I understand, to insolvency here in the Virgin Islands. We need serious individuals that are going to come in and make those hard decisions, whether we like it or not. It's a very, very pivotal time. Some of the decisions that are going to be made may not resonate well with the community, but we need to understand that some of these decisions have to be made in order for us to move forward together for a prosperous future. Now, most of the things that I would like to work with my colleagues is in support of education, in support of economic development, and also in support of housing, adequate housing for individuals as well. We want to support capitalizing on our natural resources, and we also want to support our youth and our elderly, because currently I believe the government is only focusing on our workforce. We need to focus on our youth, and we need to focus on our elderly so we don't lose our traditions and cultures as well. Thank you very much. My name is Angel Luis Bolques Jr. On November 6th, I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Anastasia, for inviting us. I know that I couldn't come before because I was doing other things, but I couldn't miss it this time. Let me first of all mention something I forgot, and you said mention it now. I was one of the proponents of the PX for the veterans, which was in St. Thomas and St. Croix. For some reason or the other, the PX for the veterans was closed. And one of my things that I want to do, and this is why I want to be chairman of the Veterans Committee, is to find out why the PX for our veterans was closed and what we can do to bring it back to our veterans. Our veterans deserved a PX. And if we had it one time, we can bring it back again. And as a veteran, that's what I will fight for. I am glad that Mr. Bolques is going to support me in my proposal to open every senior citizen center that we had. We only have one now. That is ridiculous. We need to open all our senior centers, and my proposal and legislation is to bring the young people that are at risk in the education department at schools, bring them to those centers and let those senior citizen elderly use their talent, their resources to help them, to guide them, to monitor them, to mentor them, have a mentorship program, because we have so many people that retired very early, have so much to give, and what we have done with them is we shut them away in the community when we can use them to help our youth so that they will not be involved in crime, instead develop things. My last thing is I am not going to make any promises. My pledge is to work very hard as I used to before. I think I will work much harder, and you will have my confidence that you will be part of my office and on my legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I must say that when you mentioned about you're working hard and the retirees sticking to the side, I retired 13 years. And I refuse to stick to the side. And it's up to us as retirees. If nobody tapping into us, we come to them and reaching out. Because with my program that I'm doing, the parent and teen workshop, that's what I'm doing. And I'm sharing my knowledge as a single parent, as a police officer, and the different areas I work, and my business to compile together to make a positive environment for the children here. And the civics class is one of them. Again, I want to thank you all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show the kids, and they're going to have we're going to have a mock election. We're going to talk about what they see and you know, and include them in it, and hopefully get them encouraged to keep a track of what's going on with the election process. And hopefully I'm trying to get a debate with my first debate will be with the at-large candidates and see where it go from there. But I don't want to get into it too political. I just wanted to get a feel of some of the areas for the kids to see. You know, again, I want to thank the viewing audience for watching. And if you want to register your kids to be in this workshop, call 340-643-8255. 1583. Thank you. I carved so much